All right, the second series of drums I like to talk about is the S series, or the sensitive concept of snare drums. And this particular snare drum that we're looking at is the 14 by 5.5 S series drum. Now there's 3 sizes total for the S series. This is the 5.5. There's a 6.5 version, and there's a 13 by 6.5 version. Now, the S series are comprised of 7 plies of maple. And what's interesting about this drum, a lot of guys are familiar with this particular model because this is very similar to the Maple Custom snare drums, okay, which is the Maple Custom line was a very highly respected, legendary line of drums that Yamaha created in the early 90s and basically become the industry standard for maple drums. So the S series maple drum is similar, very similar to the Maple Custom snare drum. It's a 10 lug drum, a standard lug configuration. And what's unique about this particular series is that the top bearing edge is 60 degrees, which is a more mild, well-rounded, open tone on the top. The bottom bearing edge is a 45 degree bearing edge, and what that does is it creates a real sharp, clean snare response out of the snare element, and it lends itself great to the concept of the sensitive snare drum. The hoops are 3mm aluminum die-cast hoops, and the Yamaha aluminum die-cast hoops are really some of my favorite hoops in the world, and they're really light, really strong, and they create a bright sound out of the drum. Has a real great rim shot attack to it, and what I like about them too is the rim shot sound at light dynamics is very pronounced and very clear. I love the aluminum die-cast hoops. I use them on all my toms and snare drums that I use. So this particular finish is the Antique Sunburst finish. There's 8 different finishes for the S series. This is one of my favorites. A beautiful finish. And if I had to sum these drums up, this drum, the 14 by 5.5, is probably one of the best all-around snare drums that I've ever played. If you had to just get one snare drum, this is the one that I would recommend. The 14 by 5.5 S series sensitive drum. It just works with all the different music styles, has such a great dynamic range to it. And that being said, the 6.5 version is basically the same drum, has great punch to it, but it also has a little lower tuning range, takes up a little bit more sonic space because of the depth. So if you want a little bit more power and a little bit more low-end capability out of the drum, go for the 6.5. And the 13 by 6.5 is exactly what you think it would be. It's a killer punch out of the drum, great pop, backbeat pop, and nice low tuning range because of the depth, yet retains a lot of the dynamic sensitivity out of the snare element and just plays well in a lot of different styles. So the overall sound of the S series, a sensitive concept, great all-around drums, works for many different music styles, very articulate and great response and a full dynamic range.